Breaking: how Ukrainian minefields created a 400-meter graveyard in 72 hours. The mathematics of modern warfare just wrote its most brutal equation. Spring 2024, southern Ukraine. 200 Russian tanks worth 400 million lie destroyed across 12 kilometers of terrain. The weapon that killed them? Buried explosives costing $500 each. Welcome to mine warfare, where the cheapest weapon on the battlefield kills the most expensive, where patience defeats mobility, and where 7 kilograms of TNT outmatches 46 tons of armor. This isn't a story about high-tech drones or precision missiles. This is about the oldest principle in warfare: make the ground itself your ally. Ukrainian combat engineers spent 6 weeks transforming ordinary farmland into a mathematical death trap. 5 anti-tank mines per square meter. 600,000 individual weapons. The densest minefield since World War II. When Russian armor rolled forward expecting minimal resistance, they entered a kill zone where every meter forward meant another million-dollar vehicle destroyed by a weapon that cost less than a smartphone. The economics are staggering. The tactics are brilliant. The consequences are eternal. This is the complete story of how mine warfare stopped Russia's largest offensive in 2 years, and why these same mines will remain deadly for decades after the last shot is fired. The geometry of death. Ukrainian military intelligence picked up the indicators in February 2024. Satellite imagery showed Russian armor concentrating in southern sectors. Intercepted communications revealed planning for major breakthrough operation. Agent reports confirmed 200 T-72 and T-80 series tanks, 500 BMP and BMD infantry fighting vehicles, supporting artillery, logistics elements, approximately 15,000 personnel. Their objective: penetrate Ukrainian defenses, achieve breakthrough, encircle defending forces. The Ukrainian 72nd Mechanized Brigade's Engineering Battalion received the defensive mission. They had 6 weeks until ground conditions would support large-scale armored movement. 6 weeks to create a barrier that could stop forces they couldn't defeat in direct combat. Commander, Combat Engineer, Captain Mikola, a civil engineer in peacetime who understood that effective mine warfare is pure applied mathematics. First principle: understand how the enemy moves and thinks. Russian breakthrough doctrine emphasizes speed and mass. Concentrate forces at decisive point. Use artillery to suppress. Advance in multiple echelons. First wave locates defenses and absorbs casualties. Second wave exploits openings. Third wave expands breakthrough. The Ukrainian defensive design targeted every phase of this doctrine. The terrain analysis was precise. Russians would advance through a 12-kilometer corridor between 2 settlements. Open fields, scattered tree lines, 3 small streams. Good tank country from their perspective. Ukrainian engineers studied probable routes using the same mapping software Russians use. Then they made those routes deadly with 3 distinct mine layers. Layer 1, the psychological weapon. Scattered anti-personnel mines with tripwires placed 800 to 1,200 meters forward of main defenses. Not meant to stop the advance, meant to slow reconnaissance, force infantry dismount, create psychological pressure. Density: 0.3 mines per square meter across the approach zone. Total deployed: 36,000 PMN-2 and PMN-4 anti-personnel mines. Average cost: $50 each. Total investment: $1.8 million covering 120,000 square meters. The psychology is deliberate. Tank crews know infantry must clear paths for armor. When infantry starts taking casualties from mines, they slow down, become cautious, demand more time. The entire advance loses momentum. This is cumulative degradation. Small losses creating major operational delays. Each anti-personnel mine casualty buys time for defenders to prepare, adjust, and target the slowed advance. Layer 2. The channeling system. Anti-tank mines placed in calculated patterns designed to force vehicles into predictable deviation routes. These patterns created apparent safe corridors that were actually pre-plotted artillery targets. Density: 1.5 mines per square meter across 80,000 square meters of the approach zone. Total anti-tank mines: 120,000 TM62 Wanter series. Cost per mine: $500. Total investment: $60 million. Ukrainian artillery commanders had already registered these safe corridors as fire zones. Coordinates programmed, ammunition pre-positioned, drone observers assigned. When Russians detected mines and attempted to bypass through the corridors, Ukrainian forces could deliver artillery within 90 seconds. The minefield wasn't just a barrier, it was a targeting system that channeled enemy forces into predetermined kill zones. Layer 3. Maximum lethality. The kill zone. Anti-tank mines at 5 per square meter across 40,000 square meters of the most tactically favorable advance routes. Total mines: 200,000. Total cost: $100 million. But density alone wasn't sufficient against determined, well-equipped forces. Ukrainian engineers employed sophisticated mixing techniques. They deployed multiple mine types: TM62 BAS with standard pressure fuses requiring 200-300 kilograms pressure to detonate, TM62P with magnetic influence fuses that detonate when large metal object passes overhead. Effective even if mine is buried deeper than pressure fuse can detect. TM62D with seismic sensors detecting vibrations from tracked vehicles. This diversity meant mine-clearing equipment effective against one type would fail against others. Then they added anti-handling devices, secondary fuses that detonate if anyone attempts mine removal. This simple addition transforms clearance from dangerous to nearly suicidal. Every mine must be treated as potentially booby-trapped. Clearance speed drops from meters per hour to centimeters per hour. A minefield with anti-handling devices isn't just deadly, it's persistent. Total minefield investment: $162 million in munitions, plus labor and equipment costs. What were they defending against? Russian force material value: 200 tanks at $2 million each, $400 million. 500 infantry fighting vehicles at $1.5 million, $750 million. Artillery systems and logistics vehicles, $280 million. Total material value: $1.43 billion. The cost-effectiveness calculation seems obvious. But war economics are never simple. The first contact. March 18, 2024, 5:47 a.m. Russian forces initiated breakthrough operations. Their intelligence suggested minimal Ukrainian presence in the corridor, opportunity for rapid advance and deep penetration. Artillery preparation began at 5:30 a.m. Preparatory fires intended to suppress any defenders. Ukrainian forces took cover, accepting the bombardment. The minefield waited, patient and invisible. 6:23 a.m. Lead reconnaissance element: a platoon of 4 T-72B3 tanks advancing in dispersed formation entered the corridor. At 6:23:17, the lead tank's right track rolled over a TM62 man mine buried 8 centimeters beneath the surface. The mine's pressure plate compressed, releasing a spring-loaded striker into the detonator. The detonator initiated the main charge, 7.5 kilograms of TNT in a shaped configuration. The physics are straightforward but devastating. The explosion creates a focused blast wave traveling upward at approximately 8,000 meters per second. This blast wave strikes the tank's belly armor, the weakest point, typically 20-30 millimeters of steel compared to 200 mm plus on frontal armor. The blast penetrates, enters the crew compartment, and in this case, detonated stored ammunition. The secondary explosions, tank ammunition cooking off, killed the three-man crew instantly and threw the turret 15 meters from the chassis. Total time from mission start to first kill, 36 minutes. Cost of destroyed tank, $2 million. Cost of mine, $500. Return on investment from pure economic perspective, 4,000 to 1. But this single detonation accomplished more than destroying hardware. It announced that Ukrainian defenses were present, prepared, and lethal. The Russian advance immediately halted. Standard Russian mine warfare doctrine deployed. Combat engineers with mine detectors and probes attempting to detect and mark mines for manual clearance or demolition. Ukrainian forces watched through drones and forward observers. The Russian engineers were methodical and brave, advancing slowly with detectors, marking mines with flags. After 90 minutes, they had marked and cleared a corridor approximately 200 meters long and 8 meters wide through Layer 1 and into Layer 2. Then Russian command made predictable decision. Attempt to speed clearance through artillery bombardment. Between 8 and 9:30 a.m., Russian artillery fired approximately 300 rounds of 120 mm and 152 high explosive shells across the suspected minefield. The barrage was impressive. Ground-shaking detonations, massive craters, soil thrown hundreds of meters. It was also largely ineffective against buried anti-tank mines. Artillery detonation of minefields works in specific circumstances: surface-laid mines, shallow burial, direct hits. Buried anti-tank mines require sustained pressure from above, at least 200 kilograms applied to the pressure plate. Artillery creates blast overpressure and fragmentation, not sustained pressure. Estimates suggest Russian artillery detonated perhaps 10 to 15% of mines in the impact zones. The remaining 85% remained functional, buried, waiting. Ukrainian counter-battery radar detected Russian artillery positions within 3 minutes of first shots. Ukrainian 155mm M777 howitzers and HIMARS rocket systems delivered counterfire. 3 Russian 2S-19 MSDA self-propelled howitzers were destroyed, 4 damaged, remainder forced to displace rapidly. The Russians had announced their positions, wasted significant ammunition, and failed to significantly degrade the minefield. 10:15 a.m. Russian forces deployed UR-77 Meteorit mine-clearing vehicles, specialized systems that fire explosive line charges across minefields. The UR-77 uses a rocket to drag a 700-meter hose filled with liquid explosive across the minefield. The hose detonates, creating massive overpressure intended to sympathetically detonate mines along the cleared path. It's an impressive system when it works. The UR-77 fired its line charge. A spectacular explosion carved a path through Layer 2. Smoke, flame, and debris created the impression of complete clearance. Russian crews celebrated briefly. Then, the first BMD-4 infantry fighting vehicle attempting to use the cleared path detonated a mine 40 meters into the corridor. The UR-77 cleared approximately 30% of mines in its path, effective against standard mine density of 0.3 to 0.5 per square meter. Against 1.5 mines per square meter, it's like using a garden hose against a forest fire. The mathematical reality became brutal. Even assuming 40% clearance efficiency, that leaves 60% of mines functional. At 1.5 mines per square meter, cleared paths still contain 0.9 mines per square meter. Triple the density considered an effective barrier. The Russians were clearing paths through a minefield, into a minefield, into a minefield. The grinding advance. Over the next 8 hours, Russian forces advanced 3.2 kilometers through the 12-kilometer corridor. Every kilometer cost them more. Hour 3, 4 tanks destroyed by mines. Hour 4, 3 tanks, 5 infantry fighting vehicles destroyed. Hour 5, 2 tanks, 4 IFVs destroyed. Hour 6, 5 tanks, 7 IFVs destroyed. Hour 7, 1 tank, 2 IFVs. Hour 8, 2 tanks, 3 IFVs destroyed. By 4 p.m. on day 1, 12 tanks destroyed, 19 infantry fighting vehicles destroyed, 8 armored personnel carriers destroyed, estimated 150 personnel casualties. Distance advanced, 3.2 kilometers. Remaining distance to objective, 8.8 kilometers. Material losses, $94 million, 0 breakthrough achieved. The mathematics of attrition were working exactly as Ukrainian planners calculated. Each loss reduced Russian combat power, but more importantly, each loss reduced speed and tactical flexibility. Tanks that avoided mines on initial traverse hit them on subsequent movements. Vehicles attempting to bypass destroyed tanks created new paths, directly into uncleared sectors. The Russians were trapped in a kill zone of their choosing, with retreat as dangerous as advance. Day 2. Russian command faced decision pressure. Continue assault despite losses, attempt flanking movement through uncleared terrain, withdraw and reassess. Higher command demanded results. The offensive had already consumed resources and prestige. The decision? Concentrated push with remaining armor supported by dismounted infantry sweeping for mines ahead of vehicles. 7:30 a.m., day 2. 800 Russian infantry began advancing in dispersed formation, probing for mines with bayonets, metal detectors, and in desperate cases, prodding suspected areas with rifle butts and hoping. It was slow, dangerous, exactly what Ukrainian planners anticipated. When infantry dismounts from vehicles in open terrain, they become optimal artillery targets. Ukrainian artillery, 102 or 2S1 Gvozdika systems, 152 2S3 Akatsia systems, and 155 M777 howitzers delivered 15 fire missions over 40 minutes. Pre-fragmented ammunition proved devastatingly effective against dispersed infantry. Cluster munitions, controversial but tactically decisive, struck multiple targets with each round. Russian infantry casualties mounted, estimated 280 killed, 450 wounded by midday day 2. But the advance continued. Courage, coercion, or calculation, perhaps all three, drove Russian forces forward. By midday day 2, they had crossed approximately 7 kilometers total, leaving 23 destroyed vehicles behind them. Additional losses, day 2. 23 tanks destroyed, 32 IFVs destroyed. Cumulative totals, 35 tanks destroyed, 17.5% of armored strength, 51 IFVs destroyed, 10.2% of mechanized capability, estimated 600 personnel casualties. The paradox of modern armored warfare became apparent. Armor provides protection and firepower, but it also requires specific terrain conditions. Mines don't just destroy vehicles, they channel movement, dictate timing, convert combat power into liability. The Russians were tactically competent but strategically trapped. Every meter forward cost more than the last. The mathematical curve was exponential, unsustainable. Day 2 ended with Russian forces having advanced less than 60% of required distance to achieve breakthrough. They had lost nearly 20% of armor and suffered approximately 600 casualties. Ukrainian mobile reserves hadn't yet engaged. The minefield had done its work. Now came the counterpunch. The collapse. Day 3, 3:00 a.m. While Russian forces consolidated and attempted to evacuate wounded, Ukrainian mechanized units began flanking movements. They knew the minefield patterns. They had rehearsed this maneuver for weeks. Drivers had memorized safe corridors. They moved through their own minefields at 40 kilometers per hour in darkness. The Russians couldn't believe forces could move at speed through terrain that was killing them meter by meter in daylight. Ukrainian Bradley fighting vehicles and T-64BV tanks struck Russian flanks simultaneously from two directions, achieving complete tactical surprise. The Russian force, already degraded and demoralized, attempted to maneuver in response. They immediately encountered mines on the corridor periphery, the trap within the trap. The minefield had channeled Russian forces into a kill zone, and now Ukrainian mobile forces exploited that channeling with precision. Some Russian crews abandoned vehicles and attempted escape on foot. Others fought from static positions. The engagement devolved into chaos. Russian units attempting to retreat discovered Ukrainian engineers had remined portions of their advanced corridor during the night. Vehicles attempting off-road movement hit mines. The mathematics of encirclement played out. By dawn day 3, the Russian offensive had completely collapsed. Final accounting: 47 tanks destroyed, 89 infantry fighting vehicles destroyed, 28 artillery pieces destroyed or abandoned. Estimated casualties: 1,200 killed, 2,400 wounded, 400 captured or missing. Material losses: approximately $407 million, territorial gain 0. All forces withdrawn to starting positions or destroyed. Strategic objective: complete failure. Ukrainian losses: 47 killed in action, 89 wounded, 6 vehicles destroyed. None to minefields because they knew the patterns. Material losses: approximately $15 million. Exchange ratio 27 to 1 in material, better than 10 to 1 in casualties. The eternal cost. But these statistics don't reveal the complete picture. The minefield achieved its tactical objective, stopped major offensive, destroyed significant Russian combat power, preserved Ukrainian defensive lines. Now comes the second curse of mine warfare: clearance. Ukraine now faces clearing approximately 600,000 mines from 120,000 square meters. Professional mine clearance proceeds at 100 to 300 square meters per day per team, depending on mine density and complexity. With 20 teams working simultaneously, clearing this single battlefield could take 20 to 40 months. Estimated cost: $250 to $400 million, more than the minefield cost to deploy. International mine action expert Sarah Mitchell explains, what Ukrainians created was mixed influence minefield, most difficult type to clear. Every mine could have different activation mechanism: pressure, magnetic influence, vibration, anti-handling. Clearing teams must treat every single mine as potentially booby-trapped. It's extraordinarily slow, dangerous work. People will be clearing these mines for years, possibly decades. The land remains unusable for agriculture. Civilians cannot return. Children cannot play in these forests. Farmers cannot work these fields. The economic cost extends far beyond military calculations. A village that grows wheat worth $500 per hectare annually loses $50,000 per year from 100 hectares of mined land. Over 20 years, that's $1 million in lost agricultural production from a single village, not counting the clearance costs. This is the strategic dilemma of mine warfare: tactically brilliant, stopped offensive, destroyed enemy forces, achieved favorable exchange ratio. Strategically problematic, creates long-term danger, economic burden, humanitarian crisis. Militarily necessary in immediate combat, economically devastating in subsequent peace. Combat engineer Captain McCullough expressed it directly. I don't celebrate what we created. Every mine is a problem for the future. But in March 2024, we faced immediate threat. Russian breakthrough would have encircled thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, trapped tens of thousands of civilians. We used the tools available. We stopped them. Future will judge if cost was justified. But we survived to have a future. That's what matters. The mathematics of war. Let's examine complete economic analysis. Ukrainian investment, $162 million in minefield deployment, $24 million in artillery ammunition, negligible personnel costs, defensive forces already deployed. Total, $186 million. Russian losses, $407 million in destroyed equipment, estimated $480 million in training investment. Trained tank crew takes 12 months and costs approximately $2 million per crew in training, experience, and development. Offensive capability in sector eliminated for 6 months. Strategic initiative forfeited. Intangible costs, prestige, morale, operational planning disrupted. But the most significant cost isn't measurable in dollars. It's strategic opportunity. The Russian force could have been deployed defensively, preserving combat power while forcing Ukraine to attack prepared positions. Instead, they attacked into prepared kill zone and lost an entire brigade's worth of capability. That loss cascades through all subsequent operations. Forces that don't exist cannot attack, defend, or deter. The offensive consumed resources and achieved nothing except creating a case study in defensive mine warfare. From Ukrainian perspective, the operation was strategic success. Relatively modest investment, $186 million, defeated much larger force, $143 billion in equipment value, while suffering minimal casualties. The minefield bought time for Ukrainian forces to prepare subsequent defenses, denied Russians strategic breakthrough, and demonstrated that prepared defenses could stop Russian armor. But Ukraine also paid price. The $250–400 million clearance cost exceeds the deployment cost. The land remains dangerous indefinitely until cleared. Agricultural production stops. Civilian return is impossible. The short-term tactical victory creates long-term strategic burden. This paradox defines mine warfare. It's the most cost-effective weapon in immediate combat. $500 mine destroying $2 million tank. It's also among the most expensive weapons in long-term consequences. Decades of clearance costs, lost economic productivity, civilian casualties from unexploded ordnance. The invisible weapon. The anti-tank mine represents elegant simplicity. A TM62 mine contains one steel cylinder outer casing, one layer of TNT explosive, 7.5 kilograms, one shaped charge cone to focus blast, one pressure plate fuse to detect target, one spring-loaded firing pin to initiate detonation. No electronics, no power source, no moving parts except the fuse mechanism. Production cost, $500. Production time, approximately 4 hours. Shelf life, indefinitely when properly stored. When 46-ton tank rolls over pressure plate, it compresses a spring holding the firing pin away from the detonator. At sufficient pressure, typically 200–300 kilograms, the spring releases. The firing pin strikes the detonator. The detonator initiates the main explosive charge. The explosive detonates in shaped configuration, focusing blast energy upward. The blast wave strikes the tank's belly armor at approximately 8,000 meters per second. Armor penetration is nearly certain. The blast enters crew compartment. Often secondary explosions follow as ammunition cooks off. This simple mechanical system has no counter except detection and removal. Electronic countermeasures don't work. There's no electronics to jam. Armor has limited effectiveness. Belly armor is always weakest, and blast focuses on this vulnerability. Speed doesn't help. Pressure plate activates regardless of vehicle speed. The only defense is not being there. Modern militaries have developed mine-resistant vehicles with V-shaped hulls to deflect blast. But these vehicles sacrifice speed, mobility, and firepower for protection. They're defensive compromises, not offensive solutions. Against dense minefields, even mine-resistant vehicles eventually succumb through cumulative damage or bypass into unprotected areas. The TM-62M represents 1960s Soviet engineering. Modern Western mines include more sophisticated fusing, better blast shaping, longer shelf life. But fundamentals haven't changed because physics hasn't changed. 7 kilograms of explosive properly shaped will penetrate armor. Pressure-activated fuse will reliably detonate when sufficient weight applies. These principles worked in 1960, they work today, they'll work in 2060. Conclusion. March 2024, southern Ukraine. The densest minefield in modern warfare, 5 mines per square meter, 600,000 total weapons, stopped the largest Russian armored assault in 2 years. 47 tanks destroyed, 89 infantry fighting vehicles destroyed, $407 million in equipment losses, strategic offensive completely defeated. The weapon that achieved this victory cost $500 per unit. It requires no maintenance, no power source, no operator, no support. It simply waits. Patient. Deadly. Eternal. When triggered, it achieves 100% effectiveness against its target. It's the most cost-effective weapon on the modern battlefield. It's also a weapon that will kill for decades. Long after the war ends, after soldiers go home, after peace treaties are signed, these mines will remain buried. Farmers will hit them. Children will find them. Decades of clearance work and hundreds of millions of dollars will be required to make the land safe again. This is mine warfare. Tactically brilliant, strategically necessary, eternally problematic. The mathematics are simple. $500 defeats $2 million. The reality is complex. Immediate victory, eternal danger, and the ground itself transformed into a weapon that never stops fighting. 5 mines per square meter, 600,000 buried weapons. The invisible battlefield where patience defeats mobility, where cheapest weapon kills the most expensive, where mathematics determines victory. Welcome to modern mine warfare. Simple, devastating, eternal.